Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio. I'm here with my friend and co-author Nancy Saxton-Lopez, and this is a program that we do every Thursday from 6 p.m. Eastern Time till about 6:30, and it is a program that grew out of the book that we wrote called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. And with this program, we are able to have a dialogue with you, members of the audience. That's a lot of what we do here. So we are going to read a story from one of our audience members this evening. And you can write to us at as follows. You can write to me at kenddv@gmail.com. You can write Nancy at nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. The information I'm sharing in the beginning here is all in the description, so I'm running through it kind of fast so we can get to the content of the program. You can provide support for the work we're doing here in a number of ways, one of which is to become a subscriber to the Substack that we started a few months back. And in the Substack we share the correspondence, the emails that we get, the beautiful pictures that people send to us of their animal companions, and you can see the correspondence that goes from them to us and then from us to them, and sometimes there's several back and forths. There is a $5 subscription fee per month for that, or $50 per year, and that's just something we added to what we're doing so that we can get a little bit of support for this work. You can support our work in a number of other ways, through a Venmo donation or a PayPal contribution or a monthly subscription on Spotify. This program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society in Springfield, Massachusetts. Dakin is a wonderful rescue, shelter, adoption center that does all kinds of programs that help support the human-animal bond. And one of those programs is a Zoom pet loss support group that I facilitate every month. It's on the second Tuesday of the month from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and it is cost-free. So all you need to do is click the RSVP link, which is in the description, and then you can sign up. There is no cost. You can Zoom in from anywhere in the world, and in fact people do. We have people who come from all different places, mostly places you think of as being English-speaking, and some English speakers from places that you wouldn't think of as being English-speaking. And so it's an interesting mix of people, and it's really supportive and informative, and you get a lot of different perspectives. So join us for that meeting if you would find it helpful. Also, if you RSVP and then you decide that you actually can't attend, please send me an email and let me know, because then I'll open the registration to other people. We do cap the registration so that the people who come can have as much time as it makes sense for them to share and to dialogue with others. Please consider subscribing on YouTube if you haven't already. This helps with the visibility of the program, and also if you give a like, a thumbs up, or leave a comment, that's also something that helps the algorithm to get the program in front of more people. And then finally, as we get started, we like to let you know that we have an affiliate relationship with a company called Bereave. Bereave makes these really beautifully crafted granite plaques. You can see the image on the screen right now of the sample that they sent to us, and Nancy's going to show it to you in her hands. We wanted to make sure that they showed us a sample because we are using some time to promote this, and we want to make sure that it's something that we think would be valuable.
Beautiful.
It really is beautiful. If you purchase this through the link in our description, and only if you purchase it through the link in our description, we will receive a little bit of a kickback from them that supports the program. So, and that's our opening. Nancy, you want to get us started?
Yeah, we are going to share. We were thinking of two stories, but the first one is so long that we're hoping to get to the second, but we may have to, do that at a different time. But this is Jennifer and Kingsten, and as in the title, 17 years of love, right?
Yep.
And so I'm going to start, and then Ken's going to come in halfway through.
Here's Kingsten.
Oh, he's so beautiful. What a baby. Look at those green eyes. Ooh. I found your podcast shortly before our beloved orange cat Kingsten passed away on March 30th at the age of 17. I knew I was going through anticipatory grief and was seeking out resources for comfort. Unfortunately, I didn't get to listen to too much of your podcast before he passed, but have continued listening since then. Ken and Nancy, you have the most comforting voices to listen to. Also, listening to all the stories, many of which are similar to my own, was a comfort as well. I wanted to write in with Kingsten's story as a way to continue sharing his memory. I hope others can relate to his story as well. Of course, you have my permission to share. This story has stayed saved in my drafts for weeks and months, as I would write a little and take breaks. As much as I have been wanting to share Kingsten's story, it also feels overwhelming to do so. How do you sum up 17 years of someone's life so easily? Anyway, my husband and I had barely started dating, and I already had made plans to adopt Kingsten. I was 24 and had moved out on my own a couple years prior. I had just gotten my first cat 6 months or so ago. I decided to adopt Kingsten as a companion for my other kitten cat, Neko-shan, right? I think. Maybe it's Neko-chan. She was a kitten when I got her and still less than a year old. She was very playful with so much energy, so I decided to adopt Kingsten for her. My husband, then boyfriend, and I picked up Kingsten together. He meowed the whole way home in the cardboard carrier that the shelter provided. As soon as we got him back to my place and I finally opened the carrier, he jumped into my arms with a big meow. We had to keep him and Neko-chan separated because he had caught a cold at the shelter. I wanted to give Neko-chan her turn to hang out in the living room with us and tried to put Kingsten in the bedroom. He made the loudest shrieking meows I had ever heard. It was like a newborn baby crying. We quickly had to swap places and bring Kingsten back into the living room with us. Once we were able to end the separation, Neko-chan did not appreciate her new companion. She picked on Kingsten so much while he was little, and she was still bigger than him. She would pin him down until he cried and hit him with her paw. Pretty soon he caught up to her in size, though, and she was bullying him. She just tolerated him, but kept her distance and didn't like getting too close. Kingsten would try to play with her sometimes, and she would get all bent out of shape, hissing and growling at him. In his younger and adult years, Kingsten loved to play. He was an especially good jumper. When we would play with him with a wand toy, he could jump so high, and he absolutely loved treats. He would do anything for a treat. Even in his last days, when he was refusing to eat much at all, he did not refuse treats. He and Neko-chan have mainly been indoor cats, but that's not to say they both haven't dashed outside for a sense of adventure once in a while. Kingsten loved greeting my husband at the door when he would get home from work, and many times he would dash outside and just roll around in front of the front door. There have been a couple times he did take off, though. One time when my husband went searching for him, he saw a bush rustling, and sure enough, there was Kingsten in the bush. We even took him to the beach once for all of us to catch a nice breeze during a heat wave one year. He calmly sat in his carrier and just observed the new surroundings. He had the loudest and most demanding meow and would not let us sleep in on weekends. The cats were not allowed in the bedroom. But since early 2023, Kingsten pushed that boundary, inviting himself into our bedroom and curling up in a chair. And when it was time for bed, it was back to the living room for the night. Pretty soon he was inviting himself into our bed, and we could no longer kick him out at night, and both the cats started sleeping with us. He loved to sit on my husband's lap during dinner and TV time. He would just leap into my husband's lap as he was eating, and after dinner, when it was TV time, he loved to lay a nap in my husband's lap. I had been working from home since the pandemic, and Kingsten also loved to be on my lap as I worked. He would sit and stare and meow at me, pawing to get into my lap. So inevitably, I would let him have his way and pulled him up onto my lap. I am so thankful for being able to work from home and develop an even closer bond with Kingsten and Neko-chan over the past several years. And I'm thankful that Kingsten made us change the bedroom rules and that the cats got to spend time and cuddle with us when we were in the bedroom and sleep with us when it was bedtime. Anyone that saw or met Kingsten, whether online or in person, loved him. They thought he was such a beautiful cat, and he was, of course, but he also had personality. He has been in many a Zoom workout class with me. He was my work and workout buddy. In early February, his routine blood work showed that his kidney disease had progressed significantly. Both cats had been diagnosed several years back, but the vet was not concerned. He stated that this is normal for their age and put them on a special prescription diet. Kingsten also had a heart murmur due to his age as well. Luckily, he had no health issues related to it. However, it did not allow them to treat his advanced kidney disease as aggressively as they would have liked because of the heart murmur. I started taking Kingsten to the vet daily Monday through Saturday for fluids. Luckily, the vet was just down the street. They would give him half the amount of fluids that they normally would give due to his heart murmur. He seemed to be doing good. However, his appetite then started to slowly decline. We tried a couple medications, but they didn't help too much. The appetite stimulant that the vet wanted to prescribe was out of stock everywhere. As things were getting desperate, I called around and found a Costco pharmacy that had it in stock and had the vet call in the prescription. The prescription seemed to help give him an appetite the first couple of days, but then it seemed to have no effect. This was a week before he would pass away. We bought so many different types of food and treats to try to get him to eat. I would try to feed him every 2 to 3 hours, since when he did eat, it was only a little. In addition to the low appetite, he was also having mobility issues in his hind legs. This was due to muscle weakness from the kidney disease. We would have to clean him frequently after he used the litter box.
Soon he could no longer sleep on the bed with us because we feared he would hurt himself if he tried to get off the bed in the middle of the night. So we prepared a spot for him next to our bed on the floor. And soon after that, we had to have his food, water, and very low litter box nearby. We started closing our bedroom door at night and putting our other cat, Neko-chan, in the living room so that she couldn't eat Kingsten's food or use his litter box. During the day, we would carry and put him in the litter box throughout the day to see if he had to go, and we would clean him afterwards. On March 28th, the vet brought up the end-of-life discussion. His blood work showed his kidneys were functioning at 10% and would continue to decline. During his fluids treatment, the vet also said Kingsten just laid there passively and seemed very flat and lethargic, and at home he had been laying around looking pretty miserable. He seemed to perk up when my husband came home, though. I had to wait till my husband got home from work to talk to him about it. I didn't want to say anything via text or a phone call. It was very hard for my husband to accept, especially because I was the one taking Kingsten to the vet and relaying the updates from the visit to him. We had Friday the 29th off, and my husband was able to come with me to the vet, and I asked the vet to go over things with my husband, as it's difficult for me to reiterate exactly what they had told me. The vet said we could schedule a euthanasia for Saturday the 30th if we called by the end of the day Friday to schedule it. My husband wasn't ready, so we didn't schedule it. I thought when it was time, we would just have to make it work during the week. For me, that was no problem with my flexible work-from-home job. I would even call in if necessary, but for my husband's job, it's not so easy and flexible. On Saturday, March 30th, we just relaxed all day. I was so exhausted from all the caregiving and just wanted one low-key day, though I was regrettably a bit grumpy. Neko-chan also stayed by Kingsten's side most of the day, which was very unusual for her. I took pictures as it was so heartwarming. And here's a picture from their last day. But it's difficult to look at them now, as it's also sad and bittersweet. I did run out for a quick errand, and on my way back, my Spotify started playing the song Tight Bonds by Mary Ellen Kirk. I had heard the song before. It's a sad but beautiful song. I also pressed the skip button, but instead I almost pressed the skip button, but instead I allowed it to play and bawled all the way home. It has since become my anthem for me and Kingsten. By the evening, Kingsten had not produced any urine since the morning. And in the past week, he had not produced a bowel movement, as he was simply not eating enough to do so. I called the veterinary hospital for advice, as I was worried about his kidneys were shutting down, and didn't know if he would make it through the night. The person on the phone said maybe he just needed some extra fluids. They seemed to be advising me not to jump to conclusions that we would need to do euthanasia. I did ask if that was what was needed, if the hospital offered it, and they did confirm it was. After about another hour, my husband said Kingsten was staring and blinking at him as if he was trying to communicate with him. I looked and verified he indeed was blinking at my husband. Then we also noticed his breathing was a little off. At that point, we decided it was time to go to the hospital. I had my husband sit in the back with Kingsten in his carrier to keep an eye on him as I drove us to the hospital. Luckily, it wasn't far. I explained the situation at the front desk, and they took him back. It did not take long for us to be summoned into a room, and I knew it was not going to be good. The doctor was straight with us that Kingsten did not have much time left. He said they could hospitalize him. It would cost thousands of dollars, but it would not do much to prolong the inevitable. I told him how I had the end-of-life discussion with the vet several days ago, and we were just waiting for the right time. The doctor said, "This is the right time." I looked at my husband for confirmation, and he nodded, and we agreed to proceed with the euthanasia. They brought us into another room. Then they brought Kingsten to us to take as much time as we needed and to press this button once we were ready. We held Kingsten and hugged and kissed him and told him how much we loved him and how much we were going to miss him. I could see in his eyes that it was time. They looked tired and weary, and he had held on so long for our sake, but his body was simply giving out. We pressed the button, and the doctor came in with several vials. I immediately recognized the bright pink euthanasia vial. The doctor explained that he would inject some saline first, then the drug to put him to sleep, and then finally the euthanasia drug to stop his heart. As he injected the saline, he asked how Kingsten got his name. I explained how a friend of mine named him. The friend I had gotten Neko-chan from had brought me a previous orange and white stray and suggested I name him Tungsten from the periodic table of elements. And then when I got Kingsten, she suggested the name Kingsten following the previous S-T-E-N ending of tungsten. At this point, I noticed he was almost done injecting the pink euthanasia drug, which took me aback because he didn't tell us anything since injecting the saline. I was also surprised as Kingsten's head involuntarily flung back, which I was not expecting. I get that the doctor was probably just trying to distract us by talking to us. However, I would have rather have been in the moment as the euthanasia was happening instead of being distracted. I'm not angry about it, as what's done is done. The doctor left us to spend as much time with Kingsten afterwards as we wanted, and again advised us to press the button when we were done. I had been holding him in my arms up until this point, and as I passed him to my husband's arms, we saw his last breaths exit his body after the fact, which we were told ahead of time was normal. He just looked like he was peacefully sleeping. I'm glad, since I have so many pictures of him napping and sleeping, that he didn't look dead, even though I knew he was at that moment. I didn't know how much I truly loved him until he got sick and had to face the reality of his mortality. I grew up with cats, but they were always just the family cats. Some passed due to accidents, having been indoor, outdoor cats, but my parents were so nonchalant about it, and it didn't really affect me. The ones that did grow into old age did so after I'd already moved out. I figured when I got cats in my mid-20s that I knew they would only live so long and would be ready when it was time. Oh, how naive I was. It's completely different when it's your own cats that you have raised from kittenhood and have spent nearly 2 decades together, when they've been part of your daily life for 17 years. The first several days were really rough. Each day got a little better, strangely. It's weird how you can be functioning, but he's also on your mind 24/7. We had one day off, Sunday, before both of us immediately returned to work on Monday. I feel that helped a lot, the immediate return to routine. We couldn't look at pictures of him at first, but now I like to look at them, at least the old ones. Not the most recent ones when his health was declining. We had to throw out all the treats and food we got when we were trying to get him to eat. It was just too painful to keep. My husband also threw away the specific towels we used for him as well. I couldn't get rid of his hoodies, but they were tucked away, out of sight, for now. Our black cat, Neko-chan, has been comforting us this whole time. She never left our side that first day, and she followed me around and got super happy when my husband got home from work. She started emulating Kingsten so much. She started staring at herself in the mirror in exactly the spot that Kingsten used to. She wanted to sit on my husband's lap when we got home from work like Kingsten used to, and so many other little things. Sometimes we call her Mrs. Kingsten. Her personality has completely changed. She's more vocal and wants attention, and she likes to cat loaf on top of us if we are relaxing on the bed. She meows and gets on top of us in the mornings to wake us up. She used to keep more to herself, was quiet, and was not much of a lap cat. She seems to be thriving as an only cat now. I only hope she lives another 20 years or more, or until 20 years or more. Excuse me. She actually has the same chronic kidney disease that Kingsten was diagnosed with. In fact, she was diagnosed at least 6 months to a year before him. However, currently, she's completely healthy. I know our hearts will be broken once again someday, and it may be more difficult, as she is the only cat now. Due to her age and tendency to be a more anxious cat, though, we have decided not to get any more cats at this time. I still shed tears at least once a week for Kingsten, and it's been nearly 6 months. I always thought when you lose a loved one, it can't be possible to think of them literally every day, but now I know you truly can. I may not think of him every hour, minute, or second, but I certainly think about him every day as I watch time pass slowly and quickly at the same time. Sometimes it's a random memory that just pops into my head, and sometimes a cat video that reminds me of him, or looking at his pictures, or choosing to listen to the playlist I made for him. I miss Kingsten every day. Thank you, Ken and Nancy, for allowing me to share Kingsten's story. Below are some pictures and a video. And if any of the songs on Kingsten...
What happened? Are you there? Okay.
I am. Thank you, Jennifer.
You know, there were so many good things, difficult things, heart-wrenching, heartbreaking, but good things in this. Because I know how she started was all these wonderful memories of him, right? Mm-hmm. Their life with him, the meows, the fun, how they got into the bed finally to sleep with them, all of these, going to the door when Dad came home, all of these wonderful things that now she misses, and of course her husband. They miss so much, right?
Yeah, and she said something that I think is really, it's news to people who haven't had major losses, that you can think of their beloved lost one every day.
Yeah.
And it's not ultimately terribly painful, but you remember them in snippets here and there every day. And so that it's a very poignant depiction of the way we carry our lost loved ones with us, I think. And
And-
we all do it. I mean, I think of the
yeah.
people and the animals I've lost all the time.
Right. It's
All the
like
time.
you learn how to integrate them, but you are, yes, you are with them. They are with you. And during the day, you know, like especially since I just lost Ellie, Ellie comes up, right?
Yeah.
And, or Hank, or Rosie, or, I was thinking of you with Annabelle and Isabel, right?
Yeah.
So
Abigail.
they become part of who we are,
Yep.
right? They
Yep.
become
I
part of our
think about
soul.
them. I sometimes see Isabel
Yeah.
more than Abigail, and
Abigail, sorry.
and they, and it's a way of holding them close, and I do think that their spirits are close.
Yeah.
I also think that when she said, "Time goes by fast and slow" at the same,
That's right.
it's really an interesting way, and very straightforward way of describing the way it feels after loss, because it's like excruciating sometimes, and then you realize a lot of time has passed and it doesn't seem like it,
Right.
and so it's very confusing and mixed up the way we experience grief.
And Neko-chan, right?
That's
What
a very
a
interesting thing.
change
Yeah,
that
yeah.
she had after, and this reminded me of my Fred and Louie, that she was with him at the end. She was
Mm-hmm.
never really a fan, but when he was declining, and I think right before he died, she was with him.
Yeah, this is the last picture, actually. This is
Yeah.
a picture from their last day.
And
And-
she was right there with him.
Yep.
And then it seemed that her whole personality changed and she became like him. Right? How interesting is
Yeah,
that?
it's something to imagine what's going on with that, because some people would say that maybe that meant that Kingsten was close and
I
was there.
I could really resonate during the euthanasia process because I know that, I can sit there and when the vet said it was time, and she looked at her husband, and he acknowledged, and that just ripped through me, right? Because that was what they decided to do so that he wouldn't suffer anymore. It
Yeah,
was his time.
you don't want it to be, but you know that it is.
Yeah,
It's a moment that's very painful,
yeah.
but they're very together in it, which is
Well, that's right.
really important.
So, and then there was, I guess he had put in the sedative, and then she realized that he had also put in the euthanasia without telling them. But like she said, what's done is done.
Yeah.
It's such it's so emotional and it's so difficult to go
Yeah.
through.
It was
But
such
it
a
was the
painful
right
thing.
thing for Kingsten.
Yeah,
you
and
know.
they could see that he was at the end, and it's
Yeah.
very often the case, not always, but very often the case. They're in the dying process when you
Yeah.
bring them
That's right.
to have them euthanized, and you can sometimes, now we've had people say they couldn't and it was very challenging for them, but sometimes the animals you can see that they're beginning to leave
Yeah.
this life. You can just see it in their eyes and the way they're moving or not moving, their whole demeanor and expression in their face and all of that.
Yeah, it was like when Ellie she got the saline and then she got the tranquilizer, but they gave her a little more of the tranquilizer before they were going to do the euthanasia injection, but she died
Yeah,
before that.
yeah.
So it signified to us that she was ready.
She was leaving. She was ready.
Yeah.
So we want to thank
Yeah, Jennifer.
Jennifer, and it's a beautiful story, and
Oh, Kingsten.
beautiful and painful,
Beautiful.
and a beautiful
Beautiful cat.
feline friend
Yeah.
and family member. So thank you so much. We also want to acknowledge that we didn't get to Deanna's story, but we will in 2
You will.
weeks. We will in 2 weeks because we have a guest next week. And so also we want to just encourage you once again, if you haven't, to subscribe, because that's helpful in terms of getting gaining visibility for the program to those people who may benefit from it. And Nancy, it's always great to be
Always,
with
Ken.
you, and we'll do this again next week.
Take care, everyone.